Okay, should we start? Good morning, everyone. Thanks for coming. Today, as announced you during the last week, we have the first of our two conferences, hosted by and co-organized together with the Jean Monnet Chair in European Union Governance and the BASES, the Barcelona Center for European Studies. Today we will start dealing with human rights and democracy in the Euro-Mediterranean region, current challenges. We have here together with us Samar and Husseiny. Many thanks for being with us. Samar, she comes from Brussels. She arrived yesterday. She's currently the executive director of the Egyptian Human Rights Forum. That is an independent organization based in Paris and Brussels that works to promote and protect human rights in Egypt and in the Euro-Mediterranean region. Samar also collaborates with the Euromed rights, and she's an activist and a specialist on these issues. She has over a decade of experience in advocacy, protection and strategic engagement with the United Nations mechanism, EU institution, and other stakeholders. So it's a pleasure. Thanks for being with us. The idea is to listen to Samar's speech and then to interact with some question and answer session. Okay? Many thanks.
Thank you. Thank you so much for organizing this and for having me. The voice is fine, right? Do I need to? It's working? Yeah, perfect. Okay. It's lovely to be in Barcelona again. I was here, I think, more than 14 years ago. And it's nice to see you. Thank you for the introduction. I'm humbled. And I really miss the days that I was studying. Hopefully I will go back soon because I'm starting my PhD. But I'm here today on behalf of Euromed Rights. It's a network of over 100 organizations, and I'm a member of the Gender Working Group. The whole idea is to give you an overview of the backlashes that is happening from the gender perspective in the South Mediterranean, but not your South, our South, like the North Africa part, the MENA region, what's happening there and what can be similar and what can be different. This is not like a lecture, so feel free to cut me anytime if you have questions. If you feel like anything is very vague, you don't relate to it at all, just ask. And let's start with a small question. Do you think women need more empowerment? Yes. Fair. Any other ideas? Because in the region from where I come, they think that we have enough. They think that women are empowered, we're fine, we should go on with our lives. And actually, they don't understand their privileges to the extent that they think that quotas and this, like positive discrimination in order to allow women to be part equally in the society is unfair to men. So that's how it starts in the region. I'm coming from Egypt. I'm Egyptian. I born and raised in Egypt, but I had to flee Egypt in 2017. I didn't do anything criminal. It was merely political, so don't worry. The key aspects regarding the backlashes, Euromed prepared the report in which they wanted to kind of map what are the key arguments that are used to advance the anti-gender policy or the anti-gender perspective in the region. These are like the key ones. I will discuss it with you, but the first thing, do you know any country that prohibit the word gender or gender studies in Europe or in other countries? Okay, so in 2000, yeah?
Yes, like Hungary.
Yes. Hungary is a correct one, yes. Hungary in 2018, they prohibited the word gender studies. This is why, because they're closely impacted by the Russian policies, which also prohibit gender studies. And this extended to the Egyptian context, because what's really good about looking into authoritarian regimes, that they kind of act the same at the end of the day. They learn from each other in a fantastic way. So in 2019, Egypt had a new NGO law, non-governmental organizations. The law was supposed to regulate how organizations work. But in this law, it's prohibited to use words like gender, LGBTQ rights, even political rights are not allowed. So if you are a feminist living in Egypt, having an organization or working on a project, you have to avoid this term. You can use women's rights, it's fine. You can use the word diversity, it's fine. But gender, it's a no-no. It doesn't work in this region. Well, the first argument, so we start from here. Gender as a concept is quite relatively new in the MENA region. It's not as accepted as it is in Europe or in the West. Usually people, when you tell them gender, it goes directly to women's rights. LGBTQ rights are not that strong in their brain or their mindsets. And of course, when you bring up the word gender, and if men doesn't like it and authoritarian regimes doesn't like it, so it has to be coming from the West. It's something bad. We don't like it. It's the West. It's a Western agenda. I wouldn't call it Marxist concept because my dad would be offended because he is Marxist. But this is one of the key actually challenges that we are facing in the region. That most of the gender policies that we're trying to promote, the equality or the equity, it's usually combated by the idea that these are Western ideas, Western values. It doesn't fit our work. It doesn't fit our culture. It doesn't fit the family values. Nobody knows what is the definition of family values, but it is there. Most of the countries use it. In Egypt, they use it. There is even a law that actually can put you in jail because you're defying family laws. And recently there were, I think, more than 18 young girls. They were doing videos on, how many of you on TikTok? Anyone? I'm using it, so how many use TikTok? No? Come on. Guys, you need to get out more. Like TikTok, it's the thing. Well, we had 18 girls got arrested because they created content mainly on TikTok. And they were charged around 10 years in jail because they are defying the family values, the Egyptian family values. The law doesn't have a definition for what is the family values, but it is there. I think in Italy, there was a recent referral to the concept of family values by Meloni, right? She referred to that. No offense, but I think Meloni, she's going in the right direction towards the south. So anyway, TikTok girls are still in jail because of this law. And this law does not only target these girls because they're creating content that defies the family values, but there is also a social class issue. These girls usually are from kind of, not a middle class, maybe like poorer classes, but people from the upper middle class or the middle class who create content, nobody touches them. Because for their classes, this is acceptable. So the government cannot defy what they're doing. But for poorer people in Egypt, this is not acceptable, and that's why these girls are targeted. So it doesn't only has gender aspect, but it has also a class issue. I will refer a lot to Egypt, so if you feel bored from like examples about Egypt, just tell me, okay? Well, the second argument that authoritarian regimes, or even the communities, by the way, the societies are not that evolved to digest the idea of gender equality. To be honest, I prefer equity, but anyway, gender equality, because they, for example, from a religious perspective, most of the countries in the region, they have, if they're Islamic countries, there is in the Quran many verses that would refer to the woman as a lower degree, as a citizen. She has to be provided for by the man. He is the one to take care of her. She is the weaker. And there are several interpretations to that. There is some interpretation that says that no, it was like, the Quran was like that, but this was like temporary, and we should have more evolutionary interpretation. But the thing is, because the power structure in the region serves the idea that women stays at home, that women are not empowered enough, then what happens is that they keep it like that. Okay, we can't do gender equality because it's against Sharia, or it does not comply with the Islamic values. The third thing that the anti-gender narrative has is the idea that gender studies is not a real science. It's not science. I think this goes to most of the human sciences, but especially for gender issues, they think like, we have this arguments, for example, that says, why are you speaking about women rights if human rights in general are not respected in Egypt or in Tunisia or in Morocco or wherever? The thing is, there is a need to differentiate because there is different needs for this specific category. There is a need to empower this category more. That's why we focus more on their rights. But when we reach out to the community with this narrative, they tend to feel like, no, we are all suffering, so you shouldn't be talking only about women. No, I should talk about women because they're the most vulnerable groups, they're the most marginalized groups, and not only women and LGBTQ communities. The fourth one is the fear, the politics element. Fear politics element. There is, I think in the MENA region, people recently, they wanted to boycott Netflix. Do you know why? Because they think that Netflix is actually promoting ideas that would turn their kids into LGBTQ community. And they should avoid it because these are agendas that they're trying to pass on to our younger generation, and we shouldn't watch this. They didn't see it as the fact that these communities exist and they have their own issues, and maybe your community has many of them and you don't even know, because guess what? No Arab country so far has legalized like LGBTQ like as an orientation. You can't say it loudly. It can be tolerated in some countries. For example, in Morocco, it is partially tolerated, and this is partially because the king might be from the community. So that's it. In Lebanon, it is tolerated, but it's still, there is a technique that the Arab countries are using, or countries in the MENA region are using, that they don't legalize anything. They tolerate it. So they keep all the time the risk existing. Any moment that you feel like you're empowered or you are asking for more rights, they crack down. So they want to keep you in this way. They don't tolerate the LGBTQ community. In Egypt, actually, last year, they used dating apps as a tool to trap people from the LGBTQ community. So an officer or someone from the police forces would create an account, reach out to a man, hey, let's meet, so he will know that he is gay. Once they meet, they arrest him. We have around 25 got arrested because of that. And this is ongoing. And in Egypt, when they do this, they do it in a shameful way. So they don't just do it like arresting the person, but I think in the 90s, in 2000, and later in other years, there were a lot of like headlines. Men just wearing towels because they arrested them from a spa or something like that. So they make sure that they don't only arrest the person, but they also kind of shaming him publicly. The fourth one, and I think this is what I started with, is that it has gone too far. Women are already empowered. We don't need more. They're fine. It's unfair to men. 2 days ago, I was sitting with my brother. My brother is a very decent person. He is teaching in the university. He studies microbiology. He's not misogynistic at all. But we were sitting in the garden discussing the gender equality stuff. This is our family talks, don't worry. Anyway, and then he was like, no, I think women are already privileged. So I was like, you're privileged to the extent that you cannot recognize how privileged you are. You can't understand it as a man. You really can't understand it. And this aspect, even personally for me, I didn't understand that sometimes after a while you get used to your privilege to the extent that you don't see it as a privilege. I grew up in a family that is like relatively progressive. So like access to education, it was a no-go. Like it was like a sure thing for me. I didn't have to like make a struggle. I didn't need to fight my dad. On the contrary, he was supportive. But 2 years ago, I met two of my friends, and the discussions went very intimately to the extent that one of them told me that her dad had to actually lock her inside the house, and he had to put wooden pieces on the windows to prohibit her from getting to school or university. And she had to run from the house, she had to go to another government, she had to go through a lot of things that I didn't think that I even need to. I didn't get how privileged I was at this moment. So this is part of how we think why it's the narrative that says we're privileged, women are empowered, they don't need more. And for most of the Arab countries, they have this narrative that we're working on it. Don't worry. Of course, we will go for gender equality, but we have to kind of prepare the society to accept it. We have to prepare people to digest the idea. We can't just do it over a night. And that's why usually women's rights are an easy go, an easy win for Arab countries. Not because they implement it, but because they usually seem relatively agreeing on, okay, we will improve the situation of women. I talk too much, just cut me. If you have questions about Egypt or other countries, just tell me. Okay, so these were like the key highlights for the narrative. As you can see here, there is this map we created based on sampling, and I'm not sure if I can zoom it in, but anyway, I will share with you the report and also the PowerPoint. And feel free if you want to reach out to Euromed afterwards for any questions. This map, it kind of creates, you can see that also Europe has some kind of a backlash narrative going on. Here, as you can see in the dark red, it's Egypt, also in Tunisia, also in Morocco, Libya for sure, and Italy has some elements of backlash, especially with the new nationalist prime minister. We have also Hungary. It has elements of backlashes. Sorry. Yeah. And we have also in, where else in Europe? These are mainly like Hungary, Italy, in Poland somehow, because of wherever you can find far-right groups are kind of thriving, you will find an anti-gender narrative kind of prevailing. And that's why Trump, for example, when he wanted to crack down in the beginning of his policies, it was a crackdown on the gender aspect. It's relatively new. It's easy to crack down on it from his perspective because these are the most vulnerable groups. So he started by canceling the sexual orientations, and then it went on. I don't need to go further, but I'm sure you're aware of it. Well, this map was based on like analyzing these narratives and analyzing also the legislative structure in the countries. We have in Jordan, Egypt, Morocco, we have something called personal status law. This is the law that regulates divorce, marriage, guardianship, who is taking care of who, and what kind of arrangements you will have if you're divorced, and in case of inheritance. This law in Egypt, it's a historical one. We have it since 1920. It was drafted in 1920, and since then it didn't change. Would you have an idea what was the situation of women in 1920? They weren't allowed to work. They weren't allowed to go out of the house without a man. So we're still operating with a law that was actually drafted during times where women didn't have the right to choose anything. This law does not only put restrictions on women, it also puts very restrictive elements on men. Can you guess the ranking of a father in case of a divorce? If a father wants guardianship for his children, can you guess his ranking in order, like from 1 to 20? Where does the father comes? First, it's the mother for sure. She is a key person for guardianship. But if the mother is not there, or if she's married, where does the father rank? Any idea? Okay, just a lucky guess. 1? You're very optimistic. I like you. Number 16. So first it's the mother. Second is her mother. Third is his mother. Fourth is her sister or his sister or any woman that would come in the family until you go to the 16, and then it's the father. Because raising children is not the father's responsibility. He's the one who will provide money, food, and house, but he's not responsible for raising his children. And this law still exists till this moment. If like a mother died, the father cannot be the guardianship for his like children until the rest of the 15 tell him that okay, we don't want it. So it's not only unfair to women, it's also unfair to men in a way. In the same law, if you get a divorce and you have children, and usually you will get an alimony that will cover the children expenses from the father. This alimony estimation in Egypt can goes down to 350 Egyptian pound. This is equal to $12 per month. So you have to raise a child or children and provide education, provide housing, provide food, provide proper drinks, whatever lifestyle you are providing, with 350 Egyptian pound. The same law, if you get a divorce and if you want to remarry, it means that you can't still have your children. They have to go to someone else. Your mother, they have to stay with someone else, because the law consider women who remarry after, like mothers especially, who remarry after divorce as eligible mothers. They are not eligible enough anymore to do this. If you're a mother, you didn't remarry, but you have a boyfriend and you have your children with you, their father can take the kids away in one day, because he can prove that you are not a good person. Somehow it can go under prostitution. Actually, in the Egyptian law, if you are with your boyfriend in an apartment and the police came and your bag has a lot of money, like whatever money, even if it's your personal money, they would consider it a prostitution. In this case, you will be arrested, he will be released. This is the law. If you kill your husband, I don't encourage you to do it, but for example, in case of cheating, if a man kills his wife in Egypt, and this is not only in Egypt, by the way, like the examples on the personal status law applies to several countries. Also regarding like murder, it applies to several countries. Well, if a man kills his wife, he can be acquitted because it's his honor. He is kind of, yes, protecting his honor. Yeah, you know, right? You're from where? Ah, so you're aware. Okay, yeah. So I think there is also honor killings. Is it in Lebanon also?
Yeah, in Lebanon it was until maybe I think it was taken out in 2017.
Yeah.
But yeah, it is a thing, and even though it's not, let's say, legal anymore, but you could still for sure find it, and families would tell you, yeah, it's our thing.
Yeah. The same in Jordan. In Jordan, it wasn't even taken out; it's still there. Like if a father or a brother or a husband or even a relative, he doesn't need to be a father or a brother, sees that you are with a man and he thinks that you are doing inappropriate acts, he can kill you, and then he will be like defending his honor. It happens, and then he will get acquitted. It's fine. In Egypt, the same. So in some cases, they might arrest the person, like sentence the person 1 or 2 years. It happens, but most of the cases he will get acquitted because they value his psychological status when he discovered that she is cheating. But as a woman, yeah. No. If you do it, you will get mostly either life sentence or you will get a death penalty. You don't have, as a woman, you don't have an honor to protect.
We are online, otherwise they won't hear. Okay? If you want to take the floor, please just speak on the micro. Thanks. No, I mean for the next intervention. Okay.
Sure.
Thank you.
So you don't have an honor to defend. Only men has an honor to defend. If you kill your husband in Egypt, mostly you will be sentenced death penalty or life sentence, and also you can, like, your husband can accuse you of adultery, okay? But you cannot accuse him of adultery if the act didn't happen in your house on your bed. This is the law. So this is the only case where you can accuse him of adultery, and you have to have witnesses to prove that he was doing the act. This is the law.
Isn't it allowed to, like, for a man to commit adultery, like in Islamic countries?
Islam is
I mean,
non-monogamist.
like, have like 4 wives
Yeah,
and such things.
exactly. That's why they can do it. Like, there is no adultery unless it's in your house on your bed. So if he's doing like marital act in another room in the same house, it's fine. This is yeah.
And if a woman wants a divorce, does she need some sort of like how do I word it, like a specific reason, like cheating or like violence? Does it need to be very clear, and then if it's not, then she's not granted
to be
it?
honest,
Or
the divorce aspect has been improving very much over the past maybe 20 years. So you can divorce yourself. You don't need like to prove adultery.
Okay.
But this is if you're a Muslim, because this is also another thing that we have to differentiate between. If you're a Muslim wife and you want to get a divorce, it's fine. You can get it even if there is no adultery or anything like that. And if the husband didn't accept or didn't want to divorce, you file a case. And we have something else, like a type of a divorce, but this type you kind of waive all rights that you have, and you get a divorce. We call it al-khula. So you just waive all your rights. You give him back even the dowry if he paid the dowry, and then you get a divorce. The court gives you a divorce. Yeah.
I have a question, but al-khula is, we can do it only if your husband is far or he's not existing, or you can do it even if you are with him in the same house?
No, you can do it in any case. You don't need for him to be traveling. Actually, if he is traveling for an extended period of time, you can get a divorce easier than al-khula. Al-khula, there are several types of divorce in this context. We have the regular divorce. 2 people, they got married, it's not working, they get a divorce. It happens. 2 people got married, they're not happy. One wants a divorce, one doesn't want a divorce. If this person is a man who wants a divorce, he will do it. Easy. If it's a woman and the man does not agree, in this case, she will file a case, like she will have a case in court asking for a divorce. If the man still does not agree, then there is the next step where she will do like waive all her rights, and then the court will give her the divorce decree. So these are the situations. I think there was another question that I forgot regarding. Yeah, also because if you are Christian in Egypt, it's a different story, because here it's the church that has to allow you to get a divorce, and the church in Egypt does not allow it that frequently. You have to prove adultery. You have to prove that this person is incapable of being a husband. You have to have a serious reason. Reasons like, I don't like him anymore, or he is beating me, or stuff like that. It wouldn't work. It might work in case of violence if it came up to like you went to the hospital and you are in serious health condition. But other than this, the church wouldn't allow it. And because of that, many actually, and it doesn't allow it for men and women in the same on the same degree. So the church wouldn't allow divorce in any way. But because of that, several cases of converting happens, because people, the only way to get a divorce if you are Christian without the approval of the church is to convert. You become Muslim. So the church doesn't have power over you anymore. So you do it just because you want your freedom, not because you want to denounce your... sorry.
I was just checking data on divorce in Egypt.
Yeah, 1 in 4 marriages.
So this is pretty westernized, no? I mean,
right now, yeah, very westernized, and I think, but it also has elements regarding the economic situation and the social situation and the violence aspect, because and this is another point that we will come to. I really talk too much. Anyway, okay. So the gender-based violence is also one of the key reasons.
intrafamiliar violence.
Yeah, domestic violence. So that we have people who convert because they want the divorce, and if you convert, you don't have any rights. So if you have assets, you have a house, or you inherit a house from your family, you have to waive it also. You give up everything you have if you convert. And in Egypt, it's easy if you want to convert from Christianity to Islam. But the opposite, so let's say I want a divorce, and if I'm Christian, then I will convert, get my divorce, and then I want to go back. I don't like being Muslim or whatever. I can't. It's not easy. Because in this case, I have to go through what they call a committee by Al-Azhar al-Sharif. Al-Azhar has to make all the efforts possible to convince you not to go back to Christianity. So it's a bigger dilemma regarding religious aspect here, but this is like the divorce issue, especially with the current personal status law. The law, it was supposed to be amended, I think, 20 years ago. And the state, from time to time, they say that, okay, we will amend it. We will have a new draft. I think so far they have around 4 different drafts. And each time, civil society try to engage, they present some drafts, but then nothing happened. Because, you see, the law, it's not about family. It's about the structure of the power in the society. This is specific law. It's about families and the power structure in there. So they want to keep it this way because it keeps the power structure in the hands of the men, in the hands of the fathers or the grandfathers. Because, and this is another thing, if you're a mother in Egypt and you want to enroll your kids in school, you can't do it on your own. The father has to be the one who enrolled them, or he has to give you a power of attorney. You can't do it yourself. It's illegal. Actually, if you want to register a baby, not only education, you just had a baby and you want to register the baby, you can't do it. You can't do it as a mother. It has to be the father or the grandfather, like his father, not your father. So it goes like that. You can't register your kids. You can't enroll them in school. If you want to travel with your kids, you have to get a permission from your husband. If your husband is a nice person, you're married, usually they give you permission. But if you're divorced and you have, let's say, a work offer somewhere, nothing. He can just say, okay, if you want to travel, your kids is not with you.
It's because, sorry,
Yeah.
It's because the kids are always on the name of the father, no?
Yeah.
The mother has no...
We don't have this aspect at all in Egypt or in the region, neither in Lebanon or Jordan or anything. Actually, I remember 4 or 5 years ago, the UN women wanted to do a campaign during the International Women's Day, and they wanted to encourage people to say their mother's name more. Because if you ask someone from the region about their mother's name, they usually wouldn't, if they don't know you well, they wouldn't tell you her name. It's unacceptable. And if you call someone with their mother's name, it's like an insult. So my mom is Fatma. Her name is Fatma. If someone called me Bint Fatma, you are the daughter of Fatma, it's like an insult, like I has no dad. So this is culturally how it perceived. It is perceived. So the idea of like maybe you want to have your mother's name or you have her name as a middle name, this does not exist. Yeah.
Yeah, even legally, like personally, my middle name is my dad's name and my last name is also my dad's last name. So if you look at my name, I don't have any ties to my mother. Like she could be just nobody to me.
Yeah. You're from where?
I'm from Armenia.
Oh, okay, nice. Yeah, same. My name goes all the way to my grandfather from my dad's side. My mother's side has nothing to do with me. Actually, from time to time, I revise my mother's full name and my mother's full name just to make sure that I have it in my mind, because you don't use it at all. Yeah.
And I had a question. Maybe it's a bit out of subject, but is it, I don't know, in Egypt, women can give nationality to their kids or no?
Yeah, recently, I think in the last 5 years, we have this right. But in Lebanon, you have it.
Still no.
No?
Still no. A woman can give nationality to her kids. So, for example, I have 2 cases of my aunts that they were married one from an American and other from a Palestinian guy. So even the problem is bigger.
Yeah.
So let's talk to, if I can talk about the second, the kids live in Lebanon with no papers, no Lebanese passport, and neither any paper because even the dad is Palestinian. So they only have like a paper, no passport, and it's really difficult for them to enter school, to enter to health like system.
Yeah.
And
yeah,
it's the case.
I think Palestinians, especially in the region, because they have a special status, I think it is stupid, but it is. After the 1948, most of the Palestinians who were like evacuated from their lands, they went to other countries in the region, but then the Arab countries said that they will not give them nationality because they have to go back one day. So you can be born and raised in, let's say, Lebanon, but you have a Palestinian origin, so you don't have a passport because you are supposed to go back. Go back where? Nobody knows, but you are supposed to go back. That's why you don't have a passport. You have الهوية.
تأشيرة. لا مش هوية. They don't even have a هوية
No,
because
it's like a travel document.
Exactly, a travel document.
Yeah, the Palestinian, they get only travel document. That's why a lot of Palestinians, they would prefer to go to Europe or to America or Canada because there they can get a nationality. Because moving around the world with a travel document that says Palestinian, that's a big issue in the airport. So regarding the nationality issue, it is resolved in Egypt, thank God. And like as a woman, you can give your kids nationality, but I think in Jordan you can't. You can't. Actually, in Jordan, Queen Rania, she is the queen of Jordan. She's kind of shamed somehow in the Jordanian communities because she is Palestinian origin. They don't have nationality. So she got a nationality because she married the king, not because she was born and raised in Jordan. So that's another aspect of it. Okay. So, do you have anything from your experience, any example of like gender inequality that you faced in your context? It doesn't have to be killing your husband. It can be something else. Any moment that you felt like this is unfair?
I'm sorry, I have no voice. But there are some places like in Argentina that are still only for like men only. Like some like diners or like clubs or whatever that they have like more conservative like ideologies that say like okay, only this diner is for men and like the other ones are like mixed. So like there are a few, but there are still like on the there are still like commonly known or like famous. So like the ideology is like still alive.
I had an experience when I was in Dubai, and I walked in a mall, and I wore like long pants with a top with like my arms out, and I got a lot of looks from the women, and not from the men actually, but more from the women, and they were so like they thought I was so like inappropriate and like unrespectful against like them, and so that really it actually made me like quite sad that they reacted that way. Like I wanted them to be like more opposite, like to fight for their rights, you know. But I think their like culture is so deepened within them that, but I don't know.
No, you're true. It's culturally, and actually one of the key resistance element for feminist movement is other women. Like they defy the concept. They defy the new structure that you're trying to present. There was a trend last year on TikTok. I'm there a lot. I disconnect on TikTok anyway. And it was a trend where like girls, they would do something like wearing a dress, and she would say, yes, I'm wearing a dress, I'm not a feminist. Like, yes, I'm not working, I'm not a feminist. And they were like very proud of the idea that, okay, the thing is, this is very irrelevant, because having the choice to wear a dress or wear a pant is what feminism did to her. Having the choice to work or not work is what feminism did. She doesn't understand it. I think, in a way, regarding rights, human rights in general, and even democratic values, it's like relationships. Once you get used to it, you take it for granted. Like you get used to being with someone, and then after a while you take it for granted. You forget the struggle that you went through to be with this person or to get this right. So after a while, women in certain countries, let's say Estonia or Sweden or whatever, they're fully empowered somehow. After a while, that they think that this is something that came out of a vacuum. No, it came because there were generations that went through hell to make you as empowered as like free as possible to make the choice without anybody putting any pressure on you. So in a way, like we somehow defy the same concepts that we want to promote. In Egypt, for example, and in most of the region, gender-based violence, domestic violence is not in the law. So the law in Egypt doesn't have a provision for domestic law. It doesn't have a provision for marital rape. This does not exist. And we had to do campaigns. We had to explain why it should be there. Till this moment, it's not there. So if your husband takes you by force, it's not rape. He is your husband. He has the right. If your husband beats you in the house or outside in the street, or your father or your brother, there is no penalty in the law against it, unless he kills you, and then we will see the situation of it. So, and actually, I think 2 or 3 years ago also, there were 3 cases of girls who got killed in the streets. We called it emotional murders, because the 3 ladies, girls, whatever, the ones who murdered them, they wanted to be in relationship with them, and they said, no, I'm not interested. One of them, her name is Nayira Ashraf. She's a young girl. She was very lively, and she literally got slaughtered in the street because she didn't want to be with him. It was as simple as this. He threatened her. She went to the police. She filed a report against the person, but then the police didn't take it seriously, because the law does not have like a structure for protection. If you feel threatened, yeah.
So if she was murdered, could her father kill the guy that murdered her then?
In this case, it might be.
So it's just like a revengeful law to act.
It's a revenge, but still in this case, the father might be sentenced, but not like death penalty. Might be like a year and a half. The problem is when this guy got arrested, he was sentenced in an unfair trial, to be honest. I don't like exceptions, because exceptions does not make a fair due process, and then it does not set a norm. We need to make sure that everything goes through a fair trial. This guy that slaughtered Nayira, he got arrested, and then because the issue was huge in the media, on social media, they sentenced him like that. Death penalty. I'm against death penalty anyway, but they were like death penalty. The thing is, 2 days after this, groups on Facebook was created to explain, and most of them were women, to say that actually Nayira was not a good girl. She was a slut. Sorry, pardon my English, but or my French or whatever. And they started getting photos of her like in parties or on the beach, and saying that actually she deserved it, something like that. And this is because the guy was emotional in the court, and he's like, I loved her. Yeah, but the whole concept of consensuality, you need consent. This didn't exist. This case were like 3 in this year. It was Nayira, and then there was 2 others in 2 different governorates. The problem with these cases is that the 3 victims reported. They went to the police, they reported the threats that they're facing. But the law does not give you enough protection in these cases. The whole drama vision about like relocating a person or changing their name because they're not in a safe environment, this does not happen in Egypt. Actually, if you are a witness even, you don't get protection. And this was a big issue in 2018, because doxing, like there was a case of doxing. Private videos and photos were leaked for women, and then one of the witnesses wanted to provide her affidavit or testimony, but they didn't offer her any protection So she couldn't give her affidavit because it will mean that she will be under a huge threat if she provides this testimony. Yes, sorry.
I mean, in Argentina, it happens like something similar. We call it passionate crimes.
Yeah.
And like, do they sentence the guy after killing her? Because in Argentina, it happens the same. Like, we don't have enough like resources to make sure that the woman that it's making like the sentence or whatever is like protected. I mean, you do it, but you know you're under a risk of getting killed either way. So like, are they sentenced afterwards, or is it like
usually they sentence the person. Usually they give them it will depend on how much coverage the story had. If it was like widely covered, everybody was talking about it, usually they just give them death penalty. It's an easy thing in Egypt, like death penalty. Sometimes they don't implement it, sometimes they do, but in this case, for example, they executed him. Please.
Problem that we had, for example, in Lebanon, I don't know if it was also in Egypt, it was a law that, it sounds really heavy to say it even, for me, is a law that, for example, if a girl got raped, the guy can get out of the sentence or the punishment that he will get if he marries the girl that he raped. So I don't know if this was also a law in Egypt or.
The law does not obligate the person to marry, but it is socially it is more acceptable. If someone wants to get away from the penalty of rape, they would marry the victim to avoid it.
And in most cases, families would accept because they would think that they are in this way protecting the honor of the family and protecting their girl from the society. And
this also takes us to another thing regarding reproductive health. If you're pregnant because of a rape, abortion is not legal in most of the Arab countries. You can't. If you want to do it, you will do it illegal. And if you're married and you want to do abortion, your husband has to permit it. You can't do it on your own. It's not your choice. It's not your baby. Just to make it as clear as possible. So abortion is not allowed. And mostly it's not only in cases of rape. In any case, you can't find legally ways. The only way to have abortion legally in the hospital is to prove that you have a serious health condition. And even in this case, your husband has to approve it. Also, regarding rape, I'm not sure about the other countries, but I'm sure in Egypt, anal rape is not rape.
Sorry, what was it?
Anal rape, in order for the guy or the person to get a full sentence for rape crime, it has to be vaginal rape. So anal rape does not count. A rape with any tool other than the man's private part is not rape. It's assault. It's not rape by law. This is the Egyptian law. And this also goes to the case of children, because of course, like other societies, we have cases of sexual abuse for kids. If someone raped a child, anal rape is not rape. It's assault. it's a bit painful when you go into the details, and when you try to discuss how irrelevant and illogical the context and how they're perceiving it.
Is it still common for to like get married with like 13, 14-year-olds?
No, not really. No, not like before. Like right now, it would be like minimum would be 16 and above, but not 13. This it was very limited to poor villages and people who are in a very dire need for financial support. So for them, this was a venue for income. But it does not. It's honestly, it's one of the things that the law has been implemented very, very strongly. This was this part. But still, like you can find it in some poor villages, but it's very limited, not on the same scale like before. But for example, also one of the venues that had a lot of improvement over the past maybe 15 years, it's sexual harassment. Before the revolution, I'm like very proud of it. In 2011, we had a revolution. It was like the Arab Spring. It was in Egypt, Tunisia, everywhere. You're political science fellows, so you know. So, and then since then there was more more openness in the society to talk about it, to combat it. There were a lot of initiatives to combat sexual violence and sexual harassment. In 2011 we did something called harassment map, where like you get reports from all the country and then you map the the areas where there is a lot of harassment. And the law in regard to this has changed several times, but there is a critical problem with the changes, because every time they change it, they increase the penalty. Just increasing the penalty. But the problem, you want to create the culture, a culture that would encourage women to go and report. But actually, if you go to a police station in Egypt, most probably you will get sexually harassed. This is like, yeah.
Yeah. And it was the story about, like, I think.
Yeah, I think
sure.
it's 360 something. It's the number of the case.
Exactly.
The
bus problem,
Yeah.
that the girls used to get harassed in buses, in public buses, and they weren't able to report. And then
because in order to report, there are several layers. And this is not only in Egypt. We have the first layer. You get harassed, you're in shock. So, not sure that you will act momentarily, right? Sometimes you would go home and then you will tell your family. Here comes the first layer of repression. Because mostly your family will tell you, it's okay, just forget about it. Because for them to go report, it's a visibility that they don't want to have, because the society does not like consider this something acceptable on a wider scale. Certain classes for sure, but like the average middle class, they don't consider this something that they would like to do. So we have this level of repression. And also here in this level, if you want to go, okay, your family doesn't support you, but you want to go with it anyway. Or let's go one layer before. This action, let's say you were walking in the street, someone harassed you. You caught him, you wanted to take him to a police station. Almost 90%, most of the people around you in the street, they will tell you, come on, let him go. He will not do it again. Don't ruin his future. Because the problem is you acting on his violation, not the fact that he committed the violation. If you go take the person to the police station, the first thing that the police officer will tell you would be like, it might harm your reputation more than it harm him. Because honestly, in most of the cases, the media coverage, you can see the comments on social media, people asking stuff like, yeah, but can you see what she was wearing? I think in Brussels, I like this museum. They have a museum for clothes that women were wearing when they got raped. Over the like I think the last 100 years. And this museum, you can see it really doesn't matter what she was wearing. In Egypt, and I think most of the Arab countries, it doesn't matter what you were wearing. If the culture thinks that you are wearing more like free clothes, it means that you wanted it. You were calling for it. So it will depend on what you are wearing, if you are covering your hair or not. This could be an element also. Yeah. If you are not veil, like wearing hijab, most likely people will be like, come on, you're not even wearing hijab, especially if they know that you're Muslim too. So we have another element. So we have the repression in the street. People will try to stop you from reporting, and then your family will try to stop you from reporting, and then you will go to the police station. The police station, if they didn't like sexually harass you, which is also a big probability, they will try to convince you not to report. And if they didn't try to convince you, there is another thing that I would say, that it's not about that they don't want you to report, but they don't know how to deal with your report because they're not trained. So they don't know that you are in trauma. You were facing an assault or a harassment. And we need people who are equipped with the right skills to take your report, to deal with the victim. We don't have this. So usually the person who gets your testimony is not a person who is well equipped to write a testimony in these cases. So if it ends up in the court, it might happen that your testimony changes because sometimes in the moment you have a vision and then you will remember some details later. This will not be acknowledged in court because nobody took your proper testimony at the moment. And then the case would be dismissed, most of the cases. Or the person would be sentenced 6 months in jail. But if the person gets sentenced, his family might want retaliation from you. The person himself might have retaliation after he got released. In 2014, we had a case. A girl was harassed in a mall. And then she reported. The guy was sentenced a year and a half. And then after a year and a half, she went on her life. He got released. And then he went and he attacked her with acid on her face. Because the police didn't protect her. At the end of the day, they don't understand the whole perspective of like, you need to protect the victim. This is not in their mindset in a way. And the law does not comply them to do it. It's not in the law to protect the victims. It's not in the law to train police officers how to deal with traumatized people. It's not only about sexual harassment. Any traumatizing incidents, they don't have proper education about it. So increasing the penalty, for me, it doesn't mean anything. And on the ground, it doesn't mean anything, because you increase the penalty, but you don't empower women to report more. So it means that they will not be able to report, and most of the times this is a hard word. Perpetrators, sorry. They will get away because there is nothing that actually comply anybody to put them in trial. Another element regarding the perpetrators is that usually in the media, for example, if there is an incident, a rape, a sexual assault, whatever, you wouldn't know the name of the perpetrator, but you would know the name of the victim, because the law does not compel them to hide the identity of the victim. So in a way, it's bad publicity for you, not for the person. This is like from this perspective. Regarding also domestic violence, the whole concept of shelters for women who are like subjected to domestic violence or stuff like that, it's not widely common in the region. So neither in Egypt, nor in Tunisia, not in Morocco, I'm sure not in Lebanon, not in Jordan, of course not in Libya. Tunisia for us was like the beacon of hope, but it's not anymore, because Tunisia was the only country in the region that prohibited prohibited non-monogamy. So men cannot marry more than one wife in Tunisia. But then after Qais Said, the current president, the situation is kind of gloomy. We're not sure what he will do. But what is sure is that he is attacking feminists and queer community, and many of them got arrested, many of them got sentenced in jail because of their work in civil society mainly. And the civil society in Tunisia is one of the strongest in the region, so a crackdown on it's a crackdown that would impact the whole region in a way. So this is one of the actors, like authoritarian regimes. If you think there is a backlash, who are the main stars from your perspective? Like the key actors who would... No, not this one. Yeah. Who are the key actors that promote for the anti-gender narrative? Authoritarian regimes, because if they oppress people, so why not oppressing women? Easy target. Sorry. But so, yeah. So we have the authoritarian regimes, we have the religious institutions, Islamic or Christians, both are like doing their share. We have the far right or the conservative narratives in general, because these political like streams, they usually have a very conservative mandate. Fourth, we have the fact that like external influences that countries are learning from each other, like the case of Hungary, Russia, Egypt, and then Tunisia now is learning from Egypt. So it's kind of like they're passing the ball. Like Hungary prohibited gender, Egypt prohibited gender. Tunisia, I'm not sure, but we will see. But these are kind of cases where people didn't notice as much as possible how one like repressive action in my country might be reflected in another country. A limitation on civic space. It happened, for example, the NGO law in Egypt in 2019 In the same day, Hungary changed its NGO law. Russia changed its NGO law. And the three laws, they have identical provision regarding foreign agents, foreign funding, foreign support. Almost identical. Because they understand how free civic space might impact their power. What else?
What about schools?
Yeah.
Well, I mean, do educational organizations behave in the same way you are describing with respect gender issues, the women access to education? I'm thinking about, I don't know, of course, there will be a difference between the urban Egypt and the rural sides, but let's assume a high school in El Cairo, in middle class or lower middle class, but not the poorest. I mean, how is the situation there? Do you see some improvement or not?
High school in Egypt is segregated. So girls, and especially like public schools, I'm speaking about public schools. Of course, if it's a private school or like an international school, it's a different setup. But public schools are segregated. So girls are in schools alone, and boys are in schools alone. And we don't have anything in the curriculums itself against feminism, but we don't have also something to empower women more. Like, there is nothing that, speaking about the history of the feminist movement in Egypt, although it's a very powerful one. It's the feminist movement in Egypt, it goes back to the early 90s. And they were very active during we had a revolution in 1990. They were very active in this revolution. They had very progressive approach at this time. They called for the right to education. They got the right to education. At this time, Egypt was one of the earliest countries to guarantee the right to vote for women in the world. So we had an impressive feminist movement, but nobody knows anything about it unless you are from a family that has this access to, or that your family wants to empower you more about this. But other than this, there is nothing in the curriculum. And like they wouldn't tell you in the school that it's your they wouldn't say that you're not allowed to work, but anyway, there is a stereotype in the air that at the end of the day, if you're a woman, it's not a big deal if you didn't make it in education. At the end, you will get married and there is a husband who would support you. So don't worry about it. And in villages or rural Egypt, it's even harder because access to education is limited to girls. For example, if you have a boy and a girl, and you have very limited resources, most probably the boy would be the one who will go to school, not the girl, because girls doesn't need it anyway. So the government doesn't have a structured policy against gender equality. I wouldn't say this. They say that they have a structure. Actually, they have a strategic plan for women empowerment. But this plan, it's I would say it's more customary. They did it because they wanted something cosmetic. They didn't want something efficient. Right now, we have, in the current parliament, we have the highest number of women representation in our history, 25%. And it happened because the constitution says it, not because they were freely elected. So it has to be 25% of the parliament had to be women. They are there, but the problem is because they're there not because they want to present a certain feminist agenda. they don't really serve the feminist agenda or the feminist values. They rarely bring up any like issues regarding gender or regarding women's rights or regarding LGBTQ rights, nothing. And their existence in the parliament, it's merely because it's like if you are organizing something and you tell them, okay, we need to have a gender balance. It's not about efficiency, it's not about equality, it's about how it looks. And currently the president understands that the West would like to see women on the table. So he would bring women on the table. It doesn't mean that they're fully empowered. Yeah, sure.
Yes, hi, related to this, I was curious, I have a question related to more so religion and the feminist movement that you were talking about in Egypt. I had this class and we talked about the women's mosque movement, and I don't know if that is an element that is still present in the country. And we talked about how from a Western or liberal perspective, it would be seen as not a proper feminist movement because women would not resist, Muslim women would not resist to their existing religious structures. Rather, they would be passive. And we talked about how we, from a Western perspective, have to see it as also a form of free will and a form of agency, and how they're, pursuing a feminist agenda within their different modus vivendi. I'm curious if this is still in the country present, and how does it work with what you were talking about, women's representation in political institutions? Is there a difference between this more Western feminist agenda and then more so how the country adapts to the movement? I don't know if I explain myself properly.
Yeah, very properly. Well, we still have it in the region, not only in Egypt. Mm-hmm. We call it Islamist feminism, where they approach feminism from, they want to prove that Islam does not contradict with the values of feminism. To be honest, one of my favorite professors, she's one of the leadings on this. And she's quite progressive in her ideas and her approach to feminism. And somehow I can see this as like what they call a two-edged sword. Mm-hmm. Because in a way, it's really good that they're trying to digest it, and it's totally acceptable if we get some values, some ideas, and then we don't Islamize it, but we make it more proper for the context. But then there has to be a limitation for that, because if you want to do adaptation, it's normal. Like a feminist movement in Egypt would have different priority from the feminist movement in Sudan. It's normal because we're all serving our communities. But there is a line where if you cross, you're not a feminist anymore. Some of these approaches, they cross this line. Because you can't be a feminist and you are pro non-monogamy.
Right. Yeah.
Like there are some structural ideas that, and it's not here about equality, it's about equity. Do we have the same chances? Do we have the same opportunities? I don't want to be equal with men. With men, I want to have the same chances in life. So the Islamist feminism, it's still there. It's not as widely existing as it used to be 10 years ago, especially because most of these feminists, they were affiliated with Muslim Brotherhood group, or similar groups. So when the Muslim Brotherhood group like kind of shrank because of the repression that they are facing anyway in Egypt, so the whole narrative also started to shrink a little bit. But it is there, and I'm sure once we will have more like open space in Egypt, it will reappear on the surface. And there is an approach that some of the organizations, civil society organizations, are using in Morocco and Egypt, and that they're trying to reach out to religious leaders, like imams or like priests, in order to train them and to like talk with them more about the feminist ideas, empower them more about, equip them to understand the idea, so their own narrative would be more closer to the feminist narrative. And they're trying to use these like religious leaders as promoters for the feminist narrative. Egypt used this in the 90s to combat FGM, the genital modification phenomena, and it worked. So they're trying to build on this. Of course, they have resistance from the religious institutions itself, but I think in the region, the religion means something. It means something in Egypt, it means something in Morocco, in Jordan, in Lebanon, whatever religion it is, because there are many. So yeah, like it means something. So if you're working in advocacy, you have to look at your opportunities. Where are the opportunities? Where can you reach out to your community? And how can you impact them? So if you reach out to religious leaders, it is a venue. You shouldn't close any door anyway. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah. I think I will stop here. I don't have much to add, but if you have any questions on this or another thing about the region, I'm here. I can help. On advocacy, I also can help. Yeah.
First of all, a big thanks for your speech and for making it very easy and friendly. I think that we really appreciate the dynamics. I think that we can have 10 minutes question answers, or if you have some issue that you want to share with us, we can dedicate the last 10 minutes to this. I have some, but I congratulate also the audience for your participation. Thanks. More than when I give my class, so congratulations. Thanks.
It's just the nobility element.
I don't think. The micro, please. Remember that we are recording, so we need loud voices.
I mean, I'm sure there's no answer for this, but do you think that there is still room for to correct all this, like for example in the region, to make the personal law separated from religion, like more, you know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, the personal status law, there is a lot of attempts right now to have a civilian personal status law where everybody would be treated equally. There is no differentiation between Muslims and Christians, because people like civil society wants a progressive law. But of course, it's not only the state, but the church is totally against it, because this is where their power lies. It's divorce, marriage, inheritance. This is really where their power lies, and the Egyptian church is one of the strongest in the world and one of the richest in the world. So I don't think that the Egyptian government right now would like to mess up with the current Pope. Not the American one. We have one in Egypt. So I don't think it would be an easy fight, but it's happening. At least it is happening. And in our field, and I wish to tell you this because once you graduate, if you are graduating, and you will get to a moment where you will feel like you're losing hope because the situation is really bad. Put in your mind that this is a process-oriented career. Our success is that the process keeps going, keeps happening, not the actual results in the moment. 70 years ago, not 70 years ago, last year, I was with a friend of mine. She's working in the UN. She's dark-colored like me. And we were discussing the situation in Gaza, what's happening. Our whole belief was international law and like universal human rights. And we're at the point where like, khalas, like we're gonna quit, we're looking for rich husbands and that's it. But then we were like, I told her, 70 years ago, people like us were not acknowledged as full citizens in most of the countries in the world. But now, you're working in the UN, I've been working in the European Parliament for a while. We are there, we're accepted because the process went on. It kept happening. In the 90s in Egypt, I will get it to a smaller example. My dad, he is Marxist, he's into politics, not a good thing if you're living in Egypt, but anyway, he wanted to observe elections, monitor elections. And at this time, in the early 90s, this wasn't the thing in Egypt. There was no law for it. So he and a bunch of his friends, lawyers, they decided that they would get authorization from some candidates and they would go visit some polling stations. And they kept doing this every single election. And after the election, they would issue like a small report saying that this happened, these violations happened. At this time, they didn't think that in 2005, there will be a law that will say that people, like civil society, is allowed to observe and monitor elections. We have observers licensed. People went to polling stations. So the only success was the process went on. It's accumulation. It's not about what's happening today. It's about, and this might seem idealistic, but really it's about the upcoming generation. If you want an easy thing, work in sales. But if you choose political science, it has to be the long run. Yeah. Hopefully it will happen. Any other question?
1 and 2, please. Let's say, or the other way, it's easier if the micro reach.
So I wanted to ask, the discriminations and inequality towards women are like, it's universal, it's everywhere in the world, and it has been always like that through the whole history. So I wanted to know, like, was it just a coincidence that women were the target of those discriminations, or was there a reasons for women to become that targets? Because women are not even minorities. We're more than half of the world populations. So do you think there is a reason for that to happen?
Where should we start? Well, I think there are several aspects that led to that. And I'm sure you have also points to add on this, but religions over the course of history has participated, of course, in like advancing certain stereotypes that women are less shouldn't be as privileged as men. In some, even in the very old history, like you can see that when you compare the number of queens to kings, you can see the inequality. I think I have a theory that women are more evolved, and men, they felt this from the early beginning. So they wanted to suppress women as much as they could, so we wouldn't clear them from the world or something like that. But honestly, I think that we're more evolved, and really, for males in the room, I'm really sorry. I don't. No offense. It's just a theory, because even from a physical analysis, anatomy, we're more evolved. So there is, of course, a structure that kind of understood this, and they wanted over the history to make us less aware of our privileges, make us less aware of our qualifications and capabilities, and also partially economic issues regarding this is a long story.
Yeah, I mean, just to add something, it's the question, no? I mean, because women are half of the population, statistically speaking, so there's no any possibility to define them as a minority. There are lots of literatures from different disciplines that try to understand some of religious issues, economic issues, the distribution of tasks according to capitalism mode of production, and many other layers that overlapping have produced a world like the one we have. And I think that you really hit the point by questioning. Not today we are reflecting on MENA regions, Mediterranean, but I mean inequality or inequity towards women is pretty spread across the world. No, so it's a very serious issue that has historical roots. Some questions can be found. Answers can be found in these. If you are interested in anthropology and many other disciplines, have provided some answers.
But also there is. I would totally recommend to you. There are some articles from an anthropology perspective, analyzing certain tribes in Africa, and it's totally flipped gender rules. Totally. Men are oppressed, women are not. The problem is why there is a need for oppression, why there is no community that doesn't have equality in general. But honestly, I can even share with you some of these articles please, for them if they would like to read it. Maybe here we will find some answers.
Yeah.
I have a question regarding.
Yeah, it's work.
Okay. I had a question regarding media and the place or the role media, for example, in Egypt, plays in achieving gender equality. And if you thought social media, for example, had a role to play in achieving gender equality.
Yeah. Well, let's differentiate between traditional media and social media. Traditional media, we have what we call seasonal gender equality thing. In Ramadan, each year there is a TV show, like a drama show, that discussed something related to women's issue. This is a norm now for over in the last 8 years. The personal status law was the star of the show in 3 or 4 TV shows. Other laws, sexual harassment and other laws were there. But the problem is the shows happened, but there is no follow-up from, there is no building up. It's scattered initiatives. And you have the TV show speaking about the personal status law. Usually it ends up very dramatically, so you expect that the law would be changed the day after. Nothing. So this is partially. I think the state is using it as a venue for venting, more or less. The social media, though, it's very powerful, and actually, the social media was one of the key tools that was used for women to speak up, to speak about the sexual harassment, to speak about the even testimonies regarding harassment in workplaces. During the Me Too movement, we had an extension of it in Egypt also, where journalists and activists and others from like media community were writing their testimonies about how workplaces are not safe in Egypt. And until this moment, we didn't have policies against like anti-harassment policies in workplaces. The law still doesn't comply any company to has it, but it started to happen because people were speaking up more and more on social media about it. And most of the huge cases regarding sexual harassment or violence against women, they usually show up first on social media, and then the state covers it. But again, now social media is the venue that we use for sharing insights, even reaching out to the younger community, because we're getting old, and we're trying to be more relevant to the younger generations, so they can still have the same narrative, but with their own tools, not with our tools. So social media is very powerful for sure. Yeah. I think there is one and
2, and 3. Okay, we can close at 3 unless you have more. Thanks.
This is more in like the university context. I had 2 questions about that. They kind of connect, but the first thing was, for those women who do make it to university in Egypt or in other regions, do they have limited access to what programs, what fields they can study? And the other thing I was wondering is, in universities, are male professors prioritized or privileged over female professors? Like, do we have a higher number of male professors over female professors in relation to like gender
imbalance?
Yeah.
Well, yeah, no, universities, there is no limitation on women regarding joining universities or studying whatever kind of field you would like. The problem doesn't start at what you want to study, it's what you want to work. Certain jobs still, it's not prohibited, but it's not acceptable socially that you would work, let's say, as a petrol engineering person. It would be very odd for a woman to do this. So on the university aspect, they have access. It will depends on the family resources and the ability for the family to get them into education. The professors still also I graduated from political science school in Egypt, and most of my professors actually were women. In this specific field, teaching in general, it is widely acceptable that women actually would be there. It's safer from the community perspective. It's safer and more stable. It has working hours that is acceptable, because if you're working in, even if you're a journalist, it means that you don't have specific working hours. But if you're a professor, it means that you will give your lectures between certain times, and then you can take care of your family. So this is the safe area for them.
Hi, I would like to know more about human trafficking and I don't know how the government and the social movements and society treat this situation. Because there's a case that happened 2 weeks ago, I don't know if you've heard of it, of a Colombian girl that traveled to Egypt to a festival, and it seems that she met some people in the festival and they were selling her. Then she appeared in a hospital in terrible conditions, and well, finally, like a week ago she died. But what I've heard is that the government and the police has not done anything about it, and well, it has like no solutions, neither Colombian government and police. But I would like to know how or the society treats the situation.
Sorry, I'm not aware of this incident. The women from where?
Colombia.
Colombia? Okay.
Yeah.
I will need to check it for sure. We have a law against human trafficking, but we have a law against a lot of things. This doesn't mean that that the government would really like follow through. But honestly, they have done some progress in relation, for example, to minors' marriages, because this was considered a human trafficking tool, and they did some progress on it. They did also some progress regarding trafficking throughout borders. And anyway, one of the key routes for human trafficking, it used to be from Sudan, Egypt, and then it goes to Israel. And then from there they fly somewhere or they get sold. So as you can see, now you can't go from Sudan. It's like a hot spot. It's a conflict zone. And of course, entering Gaza or entering to Israel from the Egyptian borders still also is. So this is the only good side of the current conflict, that these human trafficking routes are not operating anymore. But we have another form that I am considering a human trafficking thing. I'm not sure still yet, but during the conflict in Gaza, in the beginning, there were what we called lists for people who needed to be evacuated urgently. And then in the beginning, this was made upon the urgency of the case. But then after a while, a tourism company that is affiliated with someone called Ibrahim al-Arjani. He is a militia leader in Sinai, and he's a partner of our president's son, Mahmoud al-Sisi. And so they have this company, and then they started taking $9,000 per person if you want to cross the border. So in a way, I consider it human trafficking, and also war profiteering, because you are taking money from people in order to get them to a safe area. In a way, so this is happening, and it was like covered in most of the media. But I'm not sure about this recent case. I will need to look into it, and if I get any more information, I will share it with you.
My last question.
Of course.
So I wonder, like, you work in the European Parliament.
I used to work in the.
You used to work. Because my question is, how was it to work there, and what did you study, and also, have you seen any progress in the work that you do?
I studied my bachelor degree is political science. And then I had master's degree international management, business oriented, I think, and it has a story, but there is no time. I'll tell you later. The other thing, and I have another master's international law and human rights. And right now I will start next year, I'm starting my PhD in international law. So that's the focus. I worked in the European Parliament. What do I think about it? Well, I worked inside the European Parliament for a while in 2012, 2013. It was really hard because I was covering Egypt. And the problem is I had to do briefings every day about the president decisions And it was Mohammed Morsi, he was the president at this time, and he was changing over, like, every day he would have a different perspective. So it's really hard to do a briefing to politicians when you don't have a stable policy. So it was quite challenging from this perspective, but I had another problem with it, that it is too bureaucratic. Like, it's very bureaucratic, and the institutions are huge to the extent that you have all the resources in the world, but you don't have anything. Because I have some contacts, but if you are in a different department somewhere, I don't know that you have any information that I have. It's disconnected, and it has a lot of issues. And they spend a lot of money to go to Strasbourg every month for a week just to make France happy, and this is me off, to be honest. I had a problem with their budgetary stuff, with the work. But engaging with the politician was really nice. It's very good, well paid, to be honest. I have to be fair about it.
Why did you stop?
Why? It's a family thing. Like, my parents were living in Egypt alone. Like, I left Egypt, but my brother was with them in Egypt, and then he had to travel to do his PhD. So one of us had to go and stay with the family. I went, and then the second day that I arrived Egypt, my dad got detained. So it was for a reason. At the end of the day, he was released after, but he was detained, and I was the only one from the family who were there and able to help. So that's why I stopped. I work now with the EP, European Parliament, but not from inside, but from the advocacy perspective. It's more fun, to be honest, because if you're working for an MEP, member of a parliament, you can't challenge his policies. But if you are from the other side, the civil society, and he's saying like bullshit, you can tell him this is bullshit. But if he's your boss, you can't say it. So that's what I like about advocacy. Not only with the European Parliament, but also with the UN, the same. Yeah.
Some more questions?
Are we good? Yeah?
The last one. You have the honor and the pleasure to close.
Yeah, sorry. So on the one hand, like you described a very stable situation. Like in the practical examples you described, like people were not like in general the society was not that in favor of this equity and gender fight. On the you also said that if I understood that correctly, that one of the reasons. One of the arguments against all these changes is that they change the culture, the natural order, the religions, norms. How do you reconcile the need for change that we were all advocating for and supporting with this argument? I mean, they say you wanna change stuff, but you really want to change stuff, so it is the truth. So how do you reconcile change and the need to preserve also and respect also culture and national identities?
Well, I think respecting cultures is a must if you want to work with any community, respecting their values, their culture, whatever. But my problem is most of the authoritarian regimes, like the Egyptian one, for example, they use culture as a tool to impose repression. So sometimes it's not the culture, it's the repressive nature. Sometimes, for example, Egypt had some reservations on the CEDAW, the CEDAW Treaty, the treaty against discrimination against women. And they didn't have anything to do with Sharia at all. But they said that we have these reservations because it's against Sharia. So, and it's against our culture. when you go to the UPR, the Universal Periodical Review, and the UN Human Rights Council, Saudi Arabia, for example, whatever point someone like raises up, and it was before Mohammed bin Salman, I will give him this, regarding the situation of women, they would say it's against our culture, it's against our Sharia. But it has nothing. The culture right now, they allowed women to drive, and the culture is not against it. People are welcoming it. They wanted women to drive. It was a big hustle. So sometimes it's a tool for repression. Changing the culture, we can't change the culture, but we have to deal with the values in the culture. Like, we have to get it back to values. And even when it comes to human rights, sometimes people wouldn't accept that you tell them human rights. But if you want to reach out to the community, you might go to the like very simple values of freedom, justice. As much as you like make it abstract, it will be closer, because human rights has, in some communities, it might have a reputation that this is Western, but justice, freedom, it doesn't have a nationality. It's value.
And it is not against religion traditions or norms. I mean, okay.
I think most of the times that they refer to cultural relativism. They use it because they want to keep the status quo, because it's serving some specific group. But it's not because the religion. Of course, religions might have some restrictions, but anyway, nobody can. Like, for example, in Islam, there is, I think, almost more than 100 something interpretation for Quran. Interpretation. Like, the same verse might have 100 interpretation. I would understand it with an understanding. You would understand it with every context would have the same. Pakistan should be implementing the Sharia. They are, according to their constitution, but their example or their experience is different from the Iranian one, from the Saudi one, from the one that was in ISIS, or the one that we will see in Syria right now. So we will see. Like, let's be cautious about this. Thank you.
Many thanks to all of you, and particularly Samar, many thanks for your time, for your contribution. We can officially close the session. Many thanks.